Alright, so I mentioned before that my Rachel's 5 stars, but right now as of this battle, she's only 4 stars, and that's kind of important to mention. And the only other characters that are still not 6 stars is Amelia, and right now my Chiffaniel's 5 stars as well. Anyway, first ban, I actually banned Zerida first because I generally don't want to deal with Zerida, because any assassin characters I just have sometimes a lot of issue dealing with. Yulia is actually a huge pain to deal with, and I might probably consider banning her sooner in the future. But they didn't ban my Yulia, so I went ahead and brought mine out as well. My Yulia's 6 stars, I believe his is 5 stars, or hers are 5 stars. And then I believe this person's Rachel is 5 stars, while mine will be 4 stars. So yeah, pretty standard stuff. They let me have my TRS, so I went ahead and grabbed TRS as soon as I could. I generally don't grab her immediately, because if I grab a healer immediately, they'll just ignore the rest of the healers and leave me with a bunch of healers in the end. Though in this case I wouldn't have minded having another healer. In this run they actually let me, I ended up picking my tank last, and this will probably be my first, this is I believe my first match where I actually got Amelia getting some action. So I got my Amelia up. I mentioned before she's 5 stars right now. Pretty standard stuff here. My Yulia is partially awakened. She has 6 skill points, so that's why she has both Godly Menace, Discipline, and Holy Justice. I believe my opponent is the same thing as well. The only difference is hers is only a 5 star, so there's only an 80% chance of proccing the heal that she gets. Other than that, like I mentioned before, you want to consider the main threats here. Chloe has only a single target heal and then a bunch in Aurora Ring. She doesn't actually have a area heal. So as far as removing like debuffs is concerned, the main source of that would be Rachel's passive. This Rachel, by the way, is fully awakened. Has Runic Void here, which is the awakened skill, which does tons of damage. And then of course there's the Bozal with the sleep and the nasty AoEs and all that good stuff. So main threats, I'm not too worried about Chloe, even though she does have an attack spell. Main issues of course is Rachel and Bozal. Oh actually sorry, that's a lie. Rachel, Bozal, and Yulia, they're all problems. I'm not as worried about Yulia simply because I have Spear Guard and Amelia is actually pretty good against magic. So like I said, the main thing here is I just need to get my engagement right. One thing to note about this Rachel is she has Gospel for buffing, and she has Meditation for a passive buff, and then all she has is her primary AoE here. So she doesn't actually have any single target abilities. Same thing for the Bozal here. Sleep is single target, but it's just a debuff. It doesn't really do that much damage. So really the main single target damage dealers here are Yulia, and I guess technically close in it if you need to use her in a pinch. But more than likely she'll be just stuck healing. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive right in. The buffs are active. This is why I was a little bit confused about the Gospel, because I think maybe the reason why there was Gospel was possibly to kind of counteract some sort of debuff I might have thrown out, because they might have expected me to use Runic Void just like they did. My Rachel does have Runic Void and it has the 6 skill point awakening, but I ended up going Arcane Blast because they had a lot of casters, and Arcane Blast does extra damage against mages and holy units and demons. So it's overall pretty good. I went and I do have Gospel, but that's because I have no other way of buffing Rachel. And then of course I have Dark Reaper to bypass M defense. So pretty much my focus was to put up Arcane Blast to do some damage and, you know, debuff them and then hit them with a bunch of Dark Reapers. See where it goes. A lot of my movement is based off making sure I am just out of range of their AoEs. In the case of Rachel, I am in range of the AoEs, but there's not really much I can do about it. I want to go ahead and get into a position where I can kind of hopefully rush in and get a free hit in. So, got a Breeze proc on Yulia here, so she can get some extra movement. Of course, I got Wind God Realm going for even more movement. So this Yulia can actually get really in their faces right now. attack blessing going. Alright. So in hindsight, I think the one thing I well, actually I don't think I needed to do that. I was thinking about maybe doing an attack blessing on Yulia, but I actually don't think I need it for Landius. Let's find out. So I went ahead and moved in with Arcane Blast first. Does a bunch of damage. I got a clock proc, so right now I can cast it again despite cooldowns. I've forced the Aurora Ring to activate. So that takes care of her for now. So I don't. The only other sources of healing is Rachel here, and Yulia can kind of heal herself. So I had rushed in to attack Landius. Landius can self-res. Now one thing I did just do, the ability I used does remove 5 buffs, and it did actually remove his guard buff. So right now he can only guard from 1 distance instead of 2. And the goal here was just to force the opponent to use as many actions as possible trying to kill Yulia. Yulia has the ability to self-res if she's at really high HP, so I'm pretty much going to be trying to keep her HP up as much as possible and force them to take action against her. So that's what I'm doing here. Miracle is going to go ahead and go up. Unfortunately, it's not going to apply any buffs because she has anti-buff right now. And then I'm going to get hit with the black hole. Now this is going to be a bit rough because it's going to silence my healer. And Tiaras is my only healer right now. But I mentioned before I had cleansed the guard buff that Landius had, which means he wasn't protecting Bozol. So I took out Bozol. Unfortunately, Rachel's going to clean house here. And do a bit of passive healing and cleansing. And I went ahead and moved in. So Amelia can guard against magic. And that is the Runic Void. So, good news is Rachel's Gospel prevents all debuffs, so the Runic Void didn't apply anything to. My Amelia is immune to fixed damage, so all these little arcane residents here that does fixed damage are not going to do anything to her. So the big issue here is Tiaras, who's right now silenced, so I can't actually heal her. She can't heal herself right now, and Luna, who are going to take a bunch of damage. So the plan here was Rachel's just going to do a bunch of raw damage and use her passive heal and cleanse to try to help mitigate the damage, the fixed damage as much as possible. So, go ahead and moved in, got Dark Reaper going. Mainly it was just to soften up Yulia. There was no way to kill her because she was at full health anyway. I did proc a silence on close, but she was immune. And right now I'm just wearing down the Yulia, trying to keep her as wounded as possible. Again, no kill, it doesn't matter, she was at full health anyway. And here's the fixed damage procs. There's 5 of them. And it's going to do that for 2 rounds. So, it's going to hurt Tiaras a lot. Tiaras does have an accessory that cleanses debuffs, so I kind of use that a little bit. So, I mentioned before that Amelia can guard against magic, but my guard actually wore off, so I only had 1 range. But the good news was Luna has really high AM defense, and she just kind of soaked the magic damage. It wasn't a big deal. And Amelia here is immune to fixed damage, so that's why I showed a bunch of vulnerables. Alright, so Yulia is going to go ahead and try to take on Amelia here. But Amelia has higher defense, so she attacks first. Godly Menace is going to counterattack. That's it. The bad news is Godly Menace does make it so I can't move, essentially, and it prevents my guard. So, mobility -3, cannot use guard. But I'm not too worried because Luna here can kind of help mitigate the magic damage anyway. So right now, Rachel can't move. I did proc another clock on my second Arcane Blast, so I'm definitely going to be taking advantage of that. Right now. And then I procced another clock. This is really lucky about this clock proc. And Chloe's right now kind of, the Aurora Ring is wearing off, and she can only single target heal, so it's definitely catching up to her. I'm going to wear down Landia some more. I'm attacking from 3 range, so you can't counterattack at all. was at fixed damage. And it just passed turn with TRS because she was silenced, and she still survived it barely. And unfortunately, their Rachel, despite being stronger, especially with the buff, Runic Void's on cooldown right now. Meditation only works when at 90% or higher HP, so she has no single target skills, so she's just doing raw attacks, which, I mean, she does have high intelligence, but it's not doing any additional damage. So I do another Arcane Blast, finishes off Yulia. Reapplies the buff, doesn't really matter at this point. And since I'm now finally free of that silence, I can heal TRS and get her back to full. And this is... Amelia's guard ability makes it so she can actually counterattack against 2 range. And so what happened was, targeted Luna there, I guarded with Amelia. Amelia had higher defense, so she attacks first, and just immediately wrecked her. So, really neat match. I really kind of liked it. It definitely would have been a lot more difficult if I didn't get the clock procs, but it happens, unfortunately. And it also happens against me very often. Alright, I believe this is my last match of the placement matches. I banned Omega first because Omega terrifies me. He has a lot of crazy abilities based off if he has really, really high skill versus yours. So you can do things like bypass guard or just attack your general directly. I didn't realize until after the ban pick phase, but this is a vacuum cleaner who's one of the top tier PvPers. As you can see from the border, he was top tier in season 1. I'm pretty sure he made it to season 2 as well. I don't know how. I don't really remember how far he got in season 2, but he was easily at the top 256. So one thing to note during this ban pick phase is he actually bans my Amelia. And the moment he banned my Amelia, I realized that he had nothing but magic damage except for his Amelia. So I actually ended up going with no tank for this fight because there was just no point. It was an interesting match, though I definitely made a lot of mistakes in it. And unfortunately it didn't last too long. Yeah, leaving the TRS alive was definitely not a smart play here. The moment that Yulia appeared, I should have banned the TRS. Because allowing Yulia to have additional healing, based off attacks, is not the wisest decision. One of the key things in PvP is about engagement, like knowing when to engage, and fortunately, I didn't quite get that right in this match. So I'm kind of taking advantage of the fact that some of my characters do float, hover, or fly. This map I tend to do horrible in. I almost always lose my matches here nowadays. I'm just not that good in this map. Another thing to note is my Lana here. She's one of my top tier characters, but one of her disadvantages is I don't have a Leon, and Leon is required to unlock her defensive bonds, so she's actually very, very fragile. I went ahead and engaged here. I took advantage of my extra movements. My goal here was to try to provoke the Yulia, and see if I can catch it off position and try to finish it off as quickly as possible. Also, I wanted to apply some debuffs and force the Leona to act, so I went ahead and used Dark Hole to open things up. I have a follow-up with Rachel here to hopefully do additional damage as well. So here comes the heal. Heals herself, heals everybody else, and then cleanses the debuffs. And I follow up with a Arcane Blast. Do a lot of damage. I actually procced a Silence on Yulia, which I didn't expect. And then here is kind of where I make a mistake. For some reason, I thought I was going to be able to take on this Shafaniel with my Luna, but I don't know why, but this Shafaniel was super tanky. I still don't fully understand. I think it's just because my Demon Hunters were really beat up, and Demon Hunters actually are not very strong archers, but they do have that debuff effect. So I tried to finish it off with, yeah, it just didn't work. It did proc an Angel Feather, so what was the Angel Feather? Okay, so that's probably what saved her. Yeah, I think it was the damage dealt decreased by 20%. So when I attacked, it proc the Angel Feather, and it does a random debuff, and unfortunately it did the debuff that was the one that would actually probably keep her alive. If it weren't for that, I think I probably would have gotten the kill. Not entirely certain though. Actually, I'm pretty certain. I think she had 4,000 HP left, so it was a pretty good chance she would have still survived. So I really should have went with Claret and killed her instead, which I had to end up doing so. So, provokes the Yulia. Yulia is going to get a bunch of healing, Healing Light, and Faith, and Heaven's Gift. Divine Threat's going to remove all my buffs. I move in to try to take her out. And this was not a wise decision, unfortunately. I do kill her, but she was at near full health, so she gets a self-res. And then she Healing Lights, and then Eternal Legend. Yeah, so it pretty much did nothing. If it weren't for if the TRS wasn't there, I could have maybe tried to finish her off. But I went ahead and was like, yeah, I messed up big there, and I've already lost the units, so it was pretty much game over. And that was the placement matches. It was 3 wins, 2 losses, and that was enough to get me to gold 3. And then I did a couple more matches just to kind of see how things go. Alright, so this is my first official match outside of the placement matches. I'm just going to skip ahead and just show exactly what happens. There was not much to show here. So, press the wrong button. Step. So, here's final second round. I move in. I do. So here's the positioning here. Oh, previous step real quick. Yeah, I do Phoenix Wave. I have 2 tanks. I was gonna soften up the bows a little bit. I was mainly just doing this so I can get immune to debuffs. Backed away. Got my extra guard with Estelle. Then gets the Tranquility. I move in with my tank. And my plan was to go ahead and get a hit in on the Landius here at 3 range. Procs Thorns. And that kills her. Because Thorns proc. I hate Thorns. I actually hate a lot of the enchants that have that 30% proc rate, including Clock. But yeah, I was like, since, like I mentioned before, my Lana is just so squishy that Thorns procs just kill her. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to deal with that. And I went ahead and called it. So that's why I didn't bother just showing everything. It was just, it's one thing to make a mistake, but like, there's no way to predict if the person has Thorns. And if I assume that everything has Thorns, then there's almost no, at this point, if I assume everyone has Thorns and it'll always proc, I will probably end up just having to drop Lana or hope that the Leon banner shows up soon. That's okay. Alright, and this will be my last match for the week. They banned my my Listel. I banned their Leonhardt. Like I mentioned before, I don't like dealing with him. This guy actually gave a little emote saying "ooh," I think, and I responded with "heal me." And honestly, I'm gonna say this box was actually kind of interesting because I'm so tired of seeing kind of the same, Landius plus Juggler tank, and then, the usual build. This one did have a theme. It looked to be very Empire heavy, and so it was kind of a nice refreshing change. Technically he only has 2 tanks here, but I wasn't really that concerned about his tanks. I was more concerned about his mages and his assassins and Sakura here, so I was definitely more concerned about that. So I could have possibly banned the actually no, sorry, there's 3 tanks. There's Estelle, Vargas, and possibly Bernhardt. It looks to be Empire / Time, and with a little bit of Dark as the theme, which is kind of nice. It's my Yulia and my Zerda, nothing too surprising there. Goes straight for Bernhardt. I was like, okay, that's nice. I went straight for their Sakura and was it Justin? Is that his name? I don't remember. But I was more concerned about the ranged AoEs that I think his name is Justin. Let me be right back. His name is Joshua, not Justin. So Joshua has some nasty AoEs and can do a lot of fixed damage. And Sakura can cause anti-heal, or heal reversal, which makes it so your heals will actually do damage instead of heal people. So definitely did not want to deal with either of those. Advanced my healers, so I had to pick a healer this round. He went ahead and picked his tank. So yeah, I have 4 healers, so if they end up banning 2 of them, I have to pick one, or else I won't have a healer. I went ahead and took care of both the primary dark units. I'm so used to fighting Bozal, I'm fine with letting them have a Bozal. I took Iris as my caster, as my healer, because she can teleport people. Of course, they picked Bozal, not surprised. They started banning my mages, so I went ahead and grabbed Lana, because Lana will definitely wreck these physical units. Surprisingly banned Freya. Was not sure why. Oh, actually, I think they banned Freya because of the spiky damage. So they left me with Estelle, or Amelia and Estelle, so I got my choice of tank. I went ahead and banned their Estelle and Leon, because I just didn't want to deal with them. Specifically Estelle. And I'm more comfortable with... And Sonya is far less tanky than Leon. So yeah, kind of a unique thing about this box, like I mentioned before, they actually they have Imelda as a healer nuker hybrid, which is kind of interesting. And since the unique item that Imelda has can make you immune to fixed damage, it can help that way and provide additional. Her passive also provides a bunch of additional unit damage, so you can definitely pack a punch with this group. The main thing I was concerned about was, of course, getting in a situation where I could bypass Vargas. I was definitely very concerned about the Sonya, because Sonya has Ninjutsu, so she can just run across everything without any terrain penalties. So she had actually a lot of coverage. She can move essentially 3 additional spaces, so 1, 2, 3. So literally here, down this little route here, it's all danger. But the main thing I was concerned about was the Bernhardt. The Bernhardt has an AoE that does a bunch of damage, and it prevents healing. And then it usually follows up with a Rupture effect that does additional fixed damage. And most people who take Bernhardt take a weapon that expands the range by an additional ring. So this says 1 ring, so it's just like all around him. And the item, the weapon in question, will actually make it go out another ring, so it just covers so much area. So, like I said, I'm concerned about Sonya kind of hampering my mobility, and Bernhardt with his AoE. And then of course there's Bozal here that has sleep. He can very easily sleep my tank and then just start wrecking my other characters. So I was definitely taking that into consideration. So, moving in, got Holy Guard up and running. Just gonna move in. So something to note about Unbreakable Guardian is it can only block physical. So it won't protect against Lana or Iris's attacks. So Wind God Realm, getting that extra movement in. Get that Queen Assistant going. So went ahead and teleported my I only teleported her a little bit. I was mainly doing it for the extra buff. So she gets 20% extra damage and reduced damage taken by 20%. Also, it kind of repositioned her a little bit. With the 10 movement she currently has, she can kind of cover all this. So, a lot of coverage. There's the faction buff. I went ahead and threw out Black Hole. I was just going to see what sort of debuffs I get. I knew that Amilda is just going to follow with a mass heal and remove at least one of the debuffs. But the neat thing, so it does 2 random debuffs with Black Hole. Amilda removed one of them. So Sonya here has reduced attack. Bernard here has no passives right now, so that actually means that Rupture will not activate. The Bozal here has damage taken increased by 20%. Emilda didn't get hit, so nothing happened to her. But the main thing here was the buff that remained on Vargas was mobility -2, cannot use guard skills. So right now his guard is nullified. So I noticed that, and I had Claret here. I can hit everyone but Bozal with Claret right now, and I have a clean shot for the healer. So I went straight for it. And that attack was so overkill, but my Claret was probably going to die anyway. So he passed turn immediately. So he passed turn with Vargas immediately, because the debuff only lasted 1 round, so his guard went back up. But the guard, like I mentioned before, only protected against physical, so I went ahead and just rushed in with Lana, and immediately took out that Bernhard. I hit him with everything I got to ensure he died. Like I mentioned before, I don't want to deal with that AoE. I was fine with sacrificing Lana. Surprisingly, Lana survived. I was not expecting that to happen. So I went ahead and just moved in. I was like, alright, well, thanks for sparing her. And then Puzzle here is going to go ahead and rough her up a bit. Unfortunately, at this point, my Claret is completely pinned. She's at super low health, and she's currently got a dot on her, where after her action, she's going to take a bunch of damage. So Bozal went ahead and sleeped my Lana. I was kind of expecting it to be the tank, but I could understand why this Lana has been causing him a great deal of pain. So I'm going to keep whittling away on Vargas. Iris does magic damage, which Vargas doesn't defend well against, so I went ahead and just used her to get it. I used my healer to essentially get a hit in. Yeah, nothing special here. Just finishing out my Claret. This was actually kind of a waste. Claret was going to die anyway, but getting the kill did allow to apply Death Breath on all my units, so it definitely helped a little bit. I went ahead and moved in. Again, did a bunch of damage. At this point, my guard has worn off, so a lot of my units are actually vulnerable at this point. But I was able to finish off Vargas, thankfully. Sleep wears off. Also, something to note, the Buzzle did get a clock proc on the sleep, so he does have another sleep ready. Finally finishes off my my Lana. Personally, I think I would have went with try to go after Iris instead, but yeah, bats are vulnerable against archers, so just finished her off. But this person did fight to the end. Went straight for Basel here. The problem is all he has is sleep and black hole, and he doesn't actually have any way of healing himself. So as long as I do damage to him, he'll eventually die. I did get silenced. My healer did get silenced, so but her passive does apply a heal over time, so she does still help a little bit. Unfortunately, my other two characters got heal negation as their debuff, so right now I'm not actually healing at all. Sleep again. Another clock proc. There we go, wear him down. He does have really high magic defense, so that's why I didn't bother attacking with Iris here. And he kind of tries to go for the kill. Comes up a little bit short, and that's pretty much the match at that point. Definitely a good effort by that Basel. And there you go. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I tried to explain things a little bit as I went along. Hopefully it wasn't too horrible. It's just something different to try, and since it was the start of the new season, it was a good a time as any to go ahead and try to show this off a bit. So I may try this a little bit later. I don't plan on doing too many PvP matches. I'm probably going to wait until some of the higher ups get further along their rankings and then try to fight things at a bit more like my level. But yeah, until then, I'm the Depressed Viewer. This was Langrisser Mobile PvP. See you guys later.